Good evening, folks. That was louder than it needed to be. Sorry about that. I wasn't sure if the mic was on yet or not. Good evening. My name is Paul Benedict. I'm the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. As you may know, this is the start of Global Entrepreneurship Week. We are very excited to welcome Dan. Tonight is brought to you by the Center for Entrepreneurship and Tech Growth Ohio. As you may know, the Center for Entrepreneurship exists to serve the entire Ohio University campus. We have a major, we have a certificate, we have lots of programming like this. If you're interested in learning more about any of our stuff, you can always find me. Our office is in CoLab in the library on the 3rd floor. My email is benedict@ohio. If you want my cell phone, I'll give you that. If you want to schedule a meeting with me, it's in my email signature. So I'm happy to always meet with anybody. A couple important things that we do. One is we have a thing called the Bobcat Seed Fund, where it's run by students for students. If you are interested, if you have a business and want to pursue that, come find us, and maybe you can apply. The other thing that we're doing this week is we're encouraging students and alums and faculty, frankly, to record little 40-second videos describing how they've been entrepreneurial. I get that imposter syndrome is real, and that sometimes people are entrepreneurial and maybe don't want to admit that they are. I've had a couple conversations tonight with people selling, finding opportunities in the market to make money. If you are doing anything like that, right, share your story with us, and we'll share it on the university social media accounts. There's a camera crew out there to record, or you can do it on your own with your cell phone. Fun little tidbit is we're going to give away 2 $500 scholarships at random to students that submit those videos. So what do you have to lose, right? So that's Center for Entrepreneurship. Tech Growth Ohio is a public-private partnership here in Southeast Ohio that does investing and providing entrepreneurial support, not just to the university community, but throughout Southeast Ohio. They are a great partner of ours in serving this community in Southeast Ohio. So I now want to introduce our dean. We are very lucky to have Jackie Rees-Ulmer as our new dean in the College of Business, the first woman to lead our college. It is long overdue. So please, everybody, give a warm welcome to Jackie Rees-Ulmer.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for spending your evening with us. It's quite an honor. But it is my great pleasure to welcome Dan Snyder back to campus, his alma mater. Go Bobcats. You're supposed to sing the fight song or something at this point. But seriously, Dan grew up in Akron, is a 2003 graduate of Ohio University and the College of Business with degrees in marketing and finance. After graduating, Dan started his career at Wells Fargo. As he learned the banking and mortgage businesses and rose through the ranks, Dan saw opportunities to do it differently and to do it better. The entrepreneurial bug hit him and bit him. I think I was supposed to say bit, not hit, but either way, he caught it. So in 2014, Dan quit his safe, comfortable job, had twins, hello, I see you over there, and started Lower. That's a lot. I only have one 13-year-old, and that's a lot. So twins, my congratulations to you. Since then, Lower has grown from 5 people to more than 1,700. It's financed more than $18 billion in loans. It's been consistently rated as one of the best places to work in the country, and Dan, one of the best people to work for in the country. And that's saying a lot. Best of all, no company in the whole world has hired more Bobcats in the last 2 years than Lower, for giving so many Bobcats their professional start and for making it such a positive experience for so many. Dan, we're really, really grateful. Until this year, outside of Athens and Columbus, Lower might have been one of the best kept secrets in America. But that ended when Lower became the name sponsor of the Columbus Crew's beautiful new Lower.com field and raised the largest Series A venture capital round in the history of Ohio, $100 million. That's an accomplishment. On top of all that, Dan finds times to support great organizations like the New Albany Foundation, Nationwide Children's Hospitals Healthy Homes, and to mentor young leaders and future founders through the Young Presidents Organization and Junior Achievement. Everybody, please give a very warm welcome to founder and CEO of Lower.com and Bobcat, Dan Snyder.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mic check. All right. Well, you've heard it all. Do I have a clicker? Yes. Okay, good. Well, it's great to be back. Happy Monday. And good job just for getting here. I think this is sometimes the first step in a lot of, college challenge. I learned, maybe hard work later in life. And what my goal to you is here today is to unpack it so that you don't have as hard of a journey as me. But what I'm going to go through is a little bit more of the reality of what being an entrepreneur is and means. And as I go, I'm not a long-winded. I usually end shorter than longer. And if you have questions at the end, I'd love to answer them. And I'll do it as authentically and as transparently as possible, even if it gets me in trouble. But my journey, as you hear it, sounds really cool. But as a 2003 graduate of Higher University, my journey began with the dream of being the opposite of what an entrepreneur is, which is a lawyer. That was my dream. Since 7th grade, when you put it in like when you're literally my kid's age, and you say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" It was a lawyer. A bunch of people in my family are lawyers, and all. It just sounded like something that people would respect. No different than saying you're an entrepreneur, which, for the record, no entrepreneur actually says that they're an entrepreneur. Like that's something you say when you're grabbing a beer at Jackie O's, like we just had one. And so, what do you do now? What do you do for a living? No one says, "Well, I'm an entrepreneur." Ever. So just for the record. My dream was to work in a strip mall. This is the first job I had. On my way to being a lawyer, I took a verge and realized I needed to make some money. So I graduated in 2003 with a marketing degree and dreams of being a lawyer, and I start working in finance. Consumer finance, working at Wells Fargo, which I thought when I was getting interviewed did not look like this. I thought it was like, huge sky-rise building, office. Even if I didn't have an office, it'd still have like a cafeteria in there, just like what you see in the movies. And I'll never forget my first day on the job. I pull up, I'm living in like downtown Columbus. I drive up to Westerville, and I pull in, and not only am I amazed that it's a little office in a strip mall, but no one was even there. Like the hours were 10 to 7, and they had told me 8 to 5. So that was my first experience on the job. After going on working at Wells Fargo, while working at Wells Fargo, I started my first company, which happened to be right here in Athens, Ohio. And it was what everyone would have expected me to do. It was to start a tanning salon. I'm like 25% Norwegian. I burn like crazy. And yet, though, I had an employee, so I work at Wells, and while working there, a guy named James Ross, who's a former Bobcat as well, he joins as well. He's at Wells, and he goes, we should start a tanning salon at OU. I'm like, really? That seems crazy. Like, why? He's like, well, there's no great spot. There's always, like, people have to drive off campus. If we can get a great location, that's what we should do. And so, that's what we did, while working full-time jobs. So here I am, business owner Dan, working a full-time job, starting a job of owning my own company. I say that to this audience here because if you're going to go down the path of being an entrepreneur, more than likely, even if you get a generous seed money or grant, there's going to be hardly any money to pay yourself, especially if you're like trying to learn the lessons along the way. So if you can work for a company while you incubate your ideas and then jump off and start something, it's usually a pretty good idea, especially now. Like, you can have like a remote job via Zoom, work for a giant company that didn't even know what you're doing all day, and then start a company on their dime. It's basically what I did. But it was a humbling experience. What I realized that while having the tanning salon was that it was a pathway to not being a full-time entrepreneur, I would say. Full-time entrepreneur meaning you could like pay your actual bills. So I'm working at Wells. I start this company. I learned how to like set up a payroll system, how to manage employees, the risks, the fact that you have to pay sales tax, and a whole bunch of lessons along the way in a practical manner. Until I got experienced enough over several years working in finance to realize that my dreams of being a lawyer are gone. I really love developing people, solving problems, and I wanted to build and grow a company. And so in 2014, well, like towards the end of 13 into 14, I left my job. I had saved up some money. I put some money in the bank and then invested it all in the company. Co-founded what is now Lower with a few other folks and a bunch of faith that we could make it through. But it was a pretty scary situation. Like, being an entrepreneur is not like all grandiose. I mean, it's tough, and there's a lot of doubters. Like, there's not a single like business owner that will say that they had unanimous support, especially from their people they trust the most. I mean, most people will be jealous. The minute you say you're going to go start a business, 99% of people will say, well, that's a dumb idea. Guaranteed. So how do you get over that? My number one tip is just to be really certain with yourself and stop worrying about others. And then surround yourself with people that support you and genuinely support you. And you can find those even today when you don't own a business. Like, if you're with a bunch of single friends, and then you stumble upon somebody you like, and you start dating, and then your single friends start hating on you because they're jealous of you, more than likely, those are the same people that'll be jealous of you if you start a business. Or if you get that big, sexy job out of college. We all have these friends. So more than likely, you almost keep it under the radar. It's not that big of a deal. The likelihood of success is far more than less than the likelihood of fail. So the future begins today. We started Lower in a temporary space at Easton up in Columbus. We literally, down to the IKEA tables. That's not, neither of those are me though, putting those together. I was literally drinking a Corona Light, taking all the pictures, so learn how to delegate. Then you gotta learn to sell the dream. So we're up here, this is our conference room. There I am. And these are all many of the same people that are still with me today. We had, you don't need, what I learned is you don't need like a big fancy office. You don't need everything. Like, you're never gonna have it if you wanna start something. But what you do have is you can be a storyteller and you can cast out a huge vision of here's where we're headed. Here's what we're gonna do. Even when people look at you like you are absolutely nuts. Like, I'll distinctively remember, and this is even crazier, we had there's stained carpet, there's everything all over. And my mandate was 100% suit and tie. Like, everyone was wearing suit and tie every day. But we kept growing. casting out that big vision. Okay. Why do we keep growing? Because, and this is a true story. This is why even like the tanning salon was a successful business in Athens, but like how do you scale that? Like I didn't know every other university. If I did, it could have worked. But a single location is hard to do. A small company, while it can be successful, is hard to maintain because you have so much competition. So we kept growing, and then fast forward, boom, stadium. $1 billion valuation. And I'm seemingly the smartest person on earth. My co-founders are the smartest people on earth. And we've got it all figured out. Little do they know that just a few years earlier, we're screwing together IKEA tables, holding on for dear life. So how does it all sort out? If you want to break records, and if you want to achieve a lot, you just have to have that mindset. You have to have that chip on your shoulder. And that's what I think, honestly, Ohio University, the Center for Entrepreneurship, the business school provides you. Like, you don't have to worry about anything other than grinding, working through school, getting a job. And if you want to start a business, look at the amount of people that are willing to help you. I can promise you that this is not the same at other universities. Now, I've been to others, and I won't name in case I'm on camera, but they talk a big game, but there is no execution at the end. And if you want to be successful in business, not only at school, being an entrepreneur, you've got to set the vision, but you've got to be relentless at executing. So before I get to any sort of Q&As, if anyone has questions, and I can promise you, those that ask questions usually get the most out of these things, whether it's this setting or not. So this is no joke. On my wall in permanent ink, here's a couple tips. I will unpack. People always ask, okay, so how do I be great? What's the key to elite performance? None of this did I create myself, but talent, which everybody in this room has, without an appetite for work is going to be not great. You'll be good, but it doesn't matter if you're in sports or you own a business. It doesn't matter if you're volunteering. Like, you could have great talent as a fundraiser, as a volunteer, but if you don't have an appetite to actually work hard, it's hard to achieve it. The first thing, which is the biggest one, is probably the best thing I can advise anyone here, like, no matter really, honestly, the age. But it's hard to find, so many people come up to me that if they're contemplating leaving their job, not lower, but someone else, or even lower. I don't care. We have 2,000 people, we're hiring more. We're hiring 200 a month. So if we lose people, it's fine. I'd rather go seek your own passion. But please, 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 let's just realize that success has to come before you will find passion. And you don't believe me? If you are an unsuccessful guitar player, if you just can't hold the key, you're not going to be very passionate about playing the guitar. I promise you. I have really bad handwriting. This is the best handwriting I've ever had. I am not really passionate about writing. I'm not passionate about math. I suck at math. Some people are. They love it. They love puzzles. So don't crisscross these things. Your first job or the first company you start, you don't need to be passionate about it. But you need to be successful in it. You need to have some early success. We preach that at Lower. It is the number one thing. If it's your recent college grad, if you're 5 years out, if you're 10 years out, you're joining. As a C-suite executive, my number one goal for that person is to achieve success within 90 days. Just so they feel the win. And then the final thing all this mumbo jumbo. It's just gonna have to grind it out. You gotta have to work hard. All of you are talented and here for a reason. But whether it has nothing to do with can you do it or not, I promise. Like the imposter syndrome, like do you deserve it? Do I deserve to have co-founded a billion-dollar company after starting at OU and graduating, with a bachelor's degree? I have no idea. Like, who cares? And so if you feel like, I don't know enough to be an entrepreneur, I don't know, what are people going to think of me? I swear to God, who cares? They'll probably jealous, probably root for you to fail. Some will be there for your wins. Stop overthinking. And my whole purpose here was not to sit up here and talk and preach. Step by step, whether starting my first business while working at a Fortune 500 company, or having the leap of faith and starting on my own. The journey to being an entrepreneur is not a scripted one. But just remember that you put your mind to it. This is not BS. Put your mind to it, work hard, and persevere. More than likely, you will have success. And thanks for having me. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, wow. I figure if we get one, we'll be lucky.
Thank you. I'm Aziz, by the way. It's nice to meet you. I didn't know you before this, but you sound cool. So you say you don't have to have a passion to follow a path, but what do you think is that light green for you? Go towards that. Is it curiosity? Is it okay to go into a path not knowing anything about it? Is that a wise thing to do, or?
Yeah, it's a great question. So they say that the number one trait of being a genius is curiosity. And I think that's what it takes. You've got to be curious, ask curious questions. Stop worrying about what you're passionate about and just do more things until you then find success. I didn't join Wells Fargo in the strip mall because I was passionate about whatever they did. I had no idea. I started working there. It wasn't the most glamorous job. I endured, the cold calls and the uncertainty and the lackadaisical management and the, it was literally like a scene from The Office. 7 desks, one back room with a bathroom. Who's passionate about that? But I got an opportunity to lead at an early age because I just stuck, did my job every day, and enough people quit, and I got promoted. And what I found is I love developing people. I had no idea. I never, when are you going to get the opportunity to, develop people? So these new, recent college grads would come in, and I found success, and I found, these, internal wins of getting other people successful, showing them how to do the work. And that led me to then really be passionate about building people. That's why today even we build a big organization. I love building people, building things. I was pretty good at developing people. And then my other thesis was just, it's hard to make an impact with a small company. So if you're thinking about what you're passionate about, just do more things. Sit in on different classes or take new part-time jobs.
Hi, my name is Jordan. So my question for you is, Lower has grown incredibly fast over the past few years, so congratulations for that. But how does a leader like you kind of overcome some of the hurdles that come with growing so fast?
Not as good as I should. I mean, it's just, honestly, it's a tough thing. The interesting thing, though, is that, and a lot of our, I do like town halls or Q&As all the time. And a lot of the questions around how do we manage growth and culture and we're growing so fast. And I think it's interesting, like, we were always growing pretty quickly. And so now it's like we were going from 5 people to 10 people, 10 people to 20 people. And we're not going from 2,000 to 4,000. We're not doubling the personnel. But, so I think that in like perspective, it's not growing like it was. But here's the difference. When it's like you've got 10 people around a wooden table, and literally like people stop thinking about anything other than the mission at hand. Like, let's get to that next phase. Like we were like, okay, let's get this next, like we were a lender, and so we didn't have like FHA loans or something, and we're like, okay, we gotta get FHA loans. Okay, let's get VA loans. Okay. And everyone's just rallying. And once you're larger, there's a little bit more like tendency to fall into bureaucracy and like your own like departments trying to get more budget from other departments and like higher education almost. Sorry. I've been here all day with listening to people about this. But so how do you combat it? Really clear vision and just open and honest. Like, so every Friday we do like a Zoom stand-up where I get on, I just say, hey, like speak from the heart like I'm doing here. And if we mess up, we just say, hey, look, we thought this was gonna go right and it didn't. And we're gonna rectify that. And then I think you get a kind of a groundswell of authenticity that people can believe in. Because a lot of times people don't necessarily, like from a leadership perspective, like they'll change things, but they sometimes don't change them back. So I think, and we're never going to get them all right.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I was wondering what was one of your biggest failures and how did you go about that to kind of change your mindset to use it in a positive direction?
So the topic of failure, there's a restaurateur in Columbus. His name's Cameron Mitchell. Okay, everyone knows Cameron. So I got a chance to meet with him, and he's got just an incredible like culture and way of thinking about business. And I asked him, what's the difference? Like, how does he think about business? And he said to me, he's like, look, the more you can fail, the better. Just don't die. Avoid the catastrophic failure. And I remember that as like an unlock for me. Because when you think about failing, like there's so many different types. There's failure of profit and loss. There's failure in embarrassment, looking bad, different degrees of failure. And he was like, look, as a business, if you're running the business, who cares about anything? Like, if you lose money in a month, who cares? Make money the next month. That's not a fail. If you get bad X, Y, or Z, make a bad hire, who cares? Make more failures. Just don't go out of business. So then it becomes a bit more of a like, who cares? Honestly, like, and I think that as an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, it's okay to close one down, just like I did. It's okay. You will learn way more with starting it and ending it. I mean, and I didn't even talk about this logistics company I started because it failed before we could even like make $100 because we knew nothing about logistics. We just, yeah. So fail more. I have a leadership coach named Chet Scott with Built to Lead, and they're awesome. For 7 years, his son is a professional poker player. And he said to me, he's like, do you know the difference between a professional poker player and an amateur? And I don't play poker, ironically. I'm like, no. He's like, the professional makes way more bets. Tons of bets. 10 times the bets as the amateur. The amateur just waits and waits and waits and waits and waits, and then just goes all in. And that is very susceptible to, you don't get to learn. All of the losses, the hands you lose, you get to read the room, there's a whole thing behind it. And that was also very instrumental for me in perspective, because you're faced with so many decisions. The person that wins makes more decisions. Even, I won't go there.
Hey.
Hello, my name is Stefan. Sorry.
Which one? You guys pick.
Okay.
Pardon
I'm
me.
not good at decision making. No, I'm just kidding.
You go.
Hey,
Let's go with you.
So I have a couple of questions. First of all, hey, my name is Pravinder, and it's really nice to meet you. So I have a couple of questions. The first one is, as you mentioned, like it was Series A, the recent funding you got. So that's one of the first funding you got. So what was your first thought when it came for funding? Because that's something you need to grow, and this is the Series A. So you had a lot of funding before it. Obviously, you grew a lot. So what you thought about funding? Where you thought, why you had Series A now? Why not before? So what were your decisions when it comes to funding your startup?
So you're talking about the Series A funding,
Yeah.
and before we never took any money.
Wow.
We raised a little bit of money through some debt offerings, which is basically like friends and family. We have a pretty stable business. We're going to raise $1 million at 15% interest rate or something. We never took institutional money because realistically, two things were happening. We built the business slow enough, and yet we were doubling, but to fund itself, which is critical. So we're fortunate, though, in our business, our industry, to have at least a higher cash flow transaction, so we were able to do that. Had we not, maybe it's a different story. We got to the point, though, where how are we going to really go and compete with the other fintechs? Better has raised more money than we've ever spent in our lifetime. Billions of dollars. SoFi, who just went public. So the raising of the money was one of the most fascinating things for me, personally. I had never done it. We're a Columbus, Ohio headquartered company, not Silicon Valley. We never took any money. And here I am, out of the movies, pitching VCs. And they're all from Harvard, everyone. Harvard or Wharton, which is fine. It's just, I feel like I've got that OU advantage, just being very real. And I would just, and anyone would tell you, you have to know your pros and cons. If I was a number one in my class at Princeton, let's be honest, I'd be prepping, I'd be like, look how smart I am. I'm not. So I tell them my journey, and I'm like, I went to the Harvard on the Hocking. And here are my numbers. Mic drop. And that's it. And they were like, holy smokes. And I went and pitched in a very authentic, Ohio way. And, it was just very humble and yet confident. Because I didn't really care. We had money. We make plenty of money, and we were doubling our revenue year over year. But there's two things that we needed: the pathway to more money and the connections. So now we sit with a professional board. Anthony Noto, ironically, the CEO of SoFi, is on my board. And they've got connections that I could never have dreamed about to help leverage our growth into the future, which is critical. Thank you for the question.
Hey, my name is Stefan. So you touched a bit on the topic of mentorship already, but what other, do you have other mentors than the one that you talked about, and in what way did they help you to get to where you are today?
Great question. Just the stand, unless you were all forced to be here, just the fact that you're here on a Monday is awesome. Here's the trick. A mentor is like a cheat code. And you can have multiple mentors. And you shouldn't be afraid or ashamed to ask for help. But here's the key. Just be very crisp and concise on what help you need, why you need it, and kind of lay out a plan. Don't just be like, hey, you think you could mentor me? For me personally, I was, I didn't go to any office hours in college. I was not, it's funny how you learn things. Maybe if I had gone to a professor's office hours and then gotten a relationship and then gotten a better grade, I would have seen the reward. Because I would have been more engaged, and that professor would be more engaged in mine. I didn't do that in college. I would highly recommend doing that here. The more engaged you can be here with these folks, the better. They will help you find better jobs, help you with your classes. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. After college, I'm working at Wells. This is no joke. We're cold calling people and trying to sell them financial products. It's just like what you go to college for. And I get a hold of this guy. His name's Roy Cohen. I'll never forget this. He was he had taken out an auto loan with Wells Fargo. He's the head of human resources at Limited Brands. And I was debating on getting my MBA. And so, if I knew, I remember this, if I asked my mom, who's big into academics, hey, Mom, do you think I should get my MBA? She'd be like, absolutely you should. You absolutely should. I've just been waiting for you to say this. So I see this guy's HR Limited, and I do something outlandish, because you're not even permitted to do this at Wells. Instead of selling him, I go, hey, look, I know that everyone's probably tried to sell you a new auto loan, whatever. Can I buy you coffee? Because I'm trying to figure out if I should get my MBA or not. And he was like, can you meet tomorrow? We'll just get a Starbucks in our office. I'm like, done. Here I am, 22. I drive over to wherever, the Limited Brand near Easton. I have coffee with this guy. And in 45 minutes, I learned so much. I never ended up meeting again with him. But we stayed in touch over LinkedIn. But he was just like, look, here's who I look for. You shouldn't go get your MBA right now. Get some years of experience under your belt. Stay at Wells Fargo for at least 3 years, even if you hate the job. And then start looking in maybe year 4. And here he is speaking credible advice. I'm like, awesome. And you know what I did? Didn't get my MBA. Stayed there for 4 years. And I have him to thank. I would have gone and veered off a path by, I don't know, listening to people that weren't as maybe in tune as much. And the same thing goes with every moment. In 2018, we're rising like crazy, and I got super stuck. The business is faltering. And my leadership coach is who he's really a mentor to me, was write out your thoughts, which is a horrible thing to do. So you write all your thoughts out, and it's what really helped me create the need to go raise money and go and take this thing to the next level. Why do I need a big company? Why, what a pain. But it's a mentor. They're it is the cheat code. So just latch onto them, and there's going to be lots during your career.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you for this opportunity. Now, I've had people motivate entrepreneurs, and they say, I started my restaurant business with a grain of rice. And then you ask yourself, oh, it's easy to say, but what's the process? What platform? What pedestal do you have that we don't know? Now, I want to ask, apart from passion, the motivation that we want to get this done, are there any other pedestal or platform available for you that gave you a kind of leap into this? That's the first part of my question. Now the second part, I'm a foreigner. My friend is a foreigner. And many times we've had things like, oh, in America, if you're going to start something, you need to get an American who understand the society involved. It bugs people like me, it bugs us because we start thinking, how do we network and get people to buy into our dreams? And then I saw your conference room when you started. I counted people there. I could count 10 people. And I was thinking, did this guy pay them? Or do they just buy into this dream? So how do we get people to buy into dream? And is it valid that to really succeed in terms of business here, you need to maybe give shares to Americans, like people who are in this society, who knows about AI much, maybe you need to give them a percentage of your company so they can be an interface between you and the white society. So I just want you to give your opinion on that.
So, how to drive motivation? Well, so, like, even as of right now, outside of my co-founders, nobody has equity in the company. Not one single person there got equity to join. And everybody in that picture, I even noticed there's like a few interns, so they're cheap. They all took pay cuts. Why? Because if you're starting a company, foreign or not, in fact, foreign I think is even more interesting. Like, like what I always say is like, here's where we're headed, and you can join this now. And if it doesn't work out, so be it. But the opportunity to join is better than the opportunity that you never would get. So in other words, these folks, the job at Chase Bank, if this fails, they can get them tomorrow. The job at Wells Fargo, tomorrow. They're hiring recent college grads, let alone like experienced people. So your traditional job will always be there. And that was always my fail-safe and my backup. Like, worst case scenario, I'll get a job at a bank. Wah, wah. That's fine. I'd pay the bills until I do something else. Worst case scenario, work at, name the company. That doesn't matter how cool the company is. It's like, I mean, look at now. Everyone's starved for jobs. So that's how you sell your dream. You're like, you know, I came to America. Here's where I'm starting. Join me. And then I'm not going to pay you very much money, and you're not going to get any equity until we hit these big things, and then, you know, you'll partake. Like all of my folks that started at the beginning will all get equity now in the company. We just don't have the ability to give any then. They'll all be rewarded. My head of operations, this is a true story, in 2007, I hired him off Craigslist. He literally used to own his own mortgage company. He joins me. He's like, how much you paying? Whatever. I'm like, $32,000 a year. And I need you to process all the loans. But I need you, dude. And if we hit a home run here, you'll run operations one day. Now, who knows if that would have actually came to fruition? For him, it did, and he makes a bunch of money now. He'll have equity in the company now. I sold him the dream. And if I'm wrong, so be it. Worst case scenario, he could have gone and worked at Bank of America. I mean, that is kind of where my motivation, like a lot of people can resonate with that. Some people can't. I mean, you've got to pay enough money for them to make a livable wage. And you got to raise the money. But yeah, that's like, you know, that's the dream. The dream is something more than your normal 9 to 5, I think. Having more control. I mean, those people around that table, if they are still here today, they all have seats at a table much larger. And some left. Not good. Not good. Left too early. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like the bandmate that leaves before the band hits the #1 song. It's a bad situation. We actually private conversation after this.
Hi there, Zach Raymond.
Hey, Zach.
When talking about entrepreneurship, not every company or idea can be successful. having started multiple companies, when do you know when to give up that business or just keep grinding it out?
Oof. I think it's a great question. I think that it's really a couple of things. If it's your full-time job, that's how you're making money. I mean, you can't go that long without either raising money to pay yourself or making enough money to pay yourself. Otherwise, like, don't fall into the trap of, like, the way I approach this, because this is a sensitive conversation. If you're raising money, you feel like, okay, I need the business to have money, and you try to become humble, like too humble not to raise money for yourself, 100% you got to pay yourself. You want to be like if I'm on a plane with these two kids, they say, like, you take care of yourself first, then the kids. Like, you got to take care of yourself. So how long do you go until? I mean, it's one thing if it's like a hobby. If you have a full-time job and then you're working on your side hustle and it's just not working hard, you're putting all the effort and energy into it, it's just not working. You'll probably kill that faster than if it's your, like, you've given up everything to do this, and you go and I would give it at least a couple of years. I mean, I'm saying that from the standpoint of, like, there's years where I didn't make a single penny. Nothing. I mean, just expensing, like, car payments, expensing, like, Costco runs. And, like, those can become, scary years. So it's really a personal balance sheet question mixed with, your the traction of your business as related to investors. But I always do a little bit more than not, because all you need is one break.
Hi, my name is Christina. I think Zach just asked the question, but I was going to ask that, so I appreciate him asking that question. But I hear you talking a lot about failures, and I hear all the time, like, you need to fail to succeed. How do you, like, overcome, like, all the failures? Because you're saying that it's good to succeed, like, or fail more, so you can see, like, where you could see and, like, you can find your passion. But how would you, like, keep that, like, positive motivational mindset after seeing, like, so many failures?
Well, we don't want so many failures. I mean, like, I think it's a way of reframing it. Like, so, like, I think it's easier to accept failure if you're, like, prepared for the feedback. So usually what I would do is say, like, preempt it. So I'll go to, like, let's say you put together a paper, or you put together a presentation, and then before they can give you feedback, you say, hey, I'd really love some candid feedback from you. So that they're reviewing it with, like, a positive motivation. You want candid feedback, I promise. More candid feedback, the better. Like, I am not a professional keynote speaker, good Lord. Like, I'm the opposite of that. I stutter, I mumble, I lose my thoughts because I want to talk about so many things. So I'll go back and I'll listen to, like, a podcast, which I hate doing, hate it. But that is, like, I'm looking at, like, what an idiot. I sound like a moron. How can I get better the next time? And then it's, like, critical, it's almost like self-feedback, getting better. These are little failures. I mean, like, if, like Dr. Rapp at the Sales Center said that he gave critical feedback to somebody and they, like, teared up. It happens to everybody. Just, the lesson is, amen for him doing that. Like, and it's okay. Next time, just give the feedback. Like, in order to get better, you just have to kind of just be open to it. Otherwise, you'll never get better. Like, and more than likely, we're talking about, like, micro fails. Like, really, that's not, everyone, like, lower your expectation. Lower your own personal expectation. Like, what's the worst case? Like, I do this, no one's gonna, who cares? I mean, move on. Don't let it beat you down. You keep getting jumped.
Hi, my name is Liv. You have this mindset of knowing that things are going to work out and that you kind of overcame this imposter syndrome. Was this a mindset you've always had? Were you actively developing this mindset, or did it just one day kind of click for you?
I look at my wife because even though I can be very grumpy at times, I have always been a like half glass full, like in all walks. Like, you know, somebody around me could get sick, and I'm like, it's all right. What are we even talking about it? He'll be fine. She'll be great. It's the same thing in business, to some extent. I mean, like, I got into it with some people this morning on my way here because like the numbers seemed off to me. I'm like, what the? Is anyone else seeing this? Like, the numbers are off. Like, I feel like I'm on an island. Let's go. You know, but more than likely when there's something thrown, you know what I mean? Like, having an optimistic mindset is important. I mean, there's so many reasons not to do things. I mean, there's so many reasons. And more than likely, like, when I talk to young entrepreneurs, even older entrepreneurs, like, where they're like, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm like, okay, just, you either, this is super annoying to me, but I would say I'm like a passive Star Wars, but you heard that, like, you either do or do not, there is no try. Like, somebody gave me that Yoda thing, and I have it in my office, because it's so true. Like, either just do it or don't do it. Like, and it applies to personal life. You want to get rid of your, like, FOMO? Like, just stop worrying. No one really cares. Just go to the party or don't go to the party. If you don't go to the party, it's fine. Don't not go to the party and then wish you were there, though. Or if you go, be present. Which I do in every walk of life except for some. So that's another thing. A key to an optimistic mindset is just being able to like flow with like the paradox. That, yes, you can be optimistic and yet you can be really negative sometimes. Like, don't beat yourself up. Like, I can be very, like, I would say like 95% optimism, 5% we're going out of business. But like, it's just the real thing. I mean, you don't want to be, like, this is a true story, like my head of people ops, head of HR, I've learned that, and she's worked with me forever, she was at OU, grad, I think retail merchandising. I found her at a career fair, like I recruited her in, not like a lost dog. And then 10 years later, she's running HR for a 2,000 person company. It's crazy. But in our first talks, every week we have a one-on-one. And the first 15 minutes is me just complete venting. I'm like, it's off the record venting. I don't even know what I'm about to say, but I have to just vent about crap going on in the company. And then there's 45 minutes of professional talk. So it just is what it is. Like, you got to embrace the paradox. You're going to be negative at times, but just the majority, or super majority, be positive. Okay, you're up.
So I'm just curious, when did you decide that loan was the company that you would try to go for, and what made you decide to go into that industry?
Well, I mean, I think it was an extension of what I was already in. I mean, so from Wells, I started with this. Instead of going, you know, so say you graduate, you work for a big company, more than likely the big company will want you to move at some point. I don't know about now, but with Zoom, but to their headquarters location. San Francisco, for me, it was Wells Fargo. And in order to really become the CEO, which, you know, my mentality was either just go for broke and wherever I end up will be fine. But I wasn't going to move. Met my wife, had my family here. And so therefore, I pivoted into starting this lending division for a bank. And they let me start it in Columbus. And even though it was a pay cut, I got a profit and loss kind of bonus. And they let me do whatever I wanted. It was very low risk to them, so I started that, and it was more of a pure play mortgage company, essentially, which I had no idea about. But that was in 2007, crash happens, bad. And then 2013, I would never have left there had it not been for the board and the company saying, like, you can't grow anymore. And then I was met with either don't grow or start something else. And that's why I did it. So it wasn't like I was sitting where I'm like, one day in the future, I'm going to start a fintech lender, like ever. And that's why I think it's so hard. You know, like I invest a little money in entrepreneurs all the time, and a lot of it is cool concepts, but not proven businesses. And I look at those as just flyers, which is cool, but I mean, it's different than, like for example, my VC, they're called Excel Partners, like with an A. And they invest in Spotify and Dropbox and this company called CrowdStrike. And I was out during our vetting process and I was golfing with them. And I'm like, why did you invest in CrowdStrike? Because they were telling me they invested like $30 million or something. And it was worth like $100 million. I'm like, what's it worth now? They're like, $55 billion. I'm like, wow, okay, that's big. And it's like a cybersecurity play. But they said that the CEO, George, was really the brains behind McAfee, virus protection. So they kind of wagered it was a pretty good bet, that he knew what he was doing. And I think that's important, you know? It's like, and that's why I mean, do what you want to do, but my advice is, you know, get a job, you know, get a job somewhere, learn a trade there, and then, you know, maybe you can do it a better way on your own. And you'll have that tacit knowledge.
Let's make this the last one. Thanks. No, you're good.
That was great. Too many questions.
I think it's kind of late stage. Are you worried about the cyclicality of the housing market? Because if rates increase significantly, demand for your products will decrease. And how are you planning to sustain your growth?
Are you from Excel, my venture capital? Have they put you here? Yeah, I mean, look, we're in the housing industry. And whether it's healthcare, housing, education, I mean, you're going to have macro effects. How did COVID affect you? What's online doing versus offline doing? You know, for us, there's a seasonality to our business where people really aren't buying houses and, you know, as much around the holidays as they are in the springtime. Got it. I think for you know all of the noise out there, the number one deterrent and risk in our industry is inventory. Because we had the crash, and then new homes haven't been, the new home starts aren't even where they were back in in the 80s and the 90s and 2000s. They're just gradually coming back. So we're so far behind on creating inventory in housing. And okay, so why did that happen? Well, we had this crash, then we go into this feeling like millennials aren't going to ever buy houses, which I think grabbed attention. And what the reality is that the age bracket just moved up a bit. Like if you were getting married at 25, now it's 35. Having kids a little bit later, it's fine. But the need for a home doesn't happen until your ability to allow the annoyance of neighbors walking to a parking garage, not having a backyard, becomes too much. Then you move and you buy a house. It's just later than our parents did. And now there's no houses. There's tons of apartments. The apartment rent is in parity with, for a $2,000 rent, you can buy you can get an $800,000 mortgage, which is crazy. So Inventory is the big thing, more than interest rates or anything. We have a huge backlog of people trying to buy houses across the country. They just can't find houses. You know, I don't think it's going to get fixed anytime soon, but by the time you guys are probably buying houses, it'll probably be fixed. We'll hope. Well, out of time.
Folks, let's give Dan a
Thank you guys
very
very
big
much.
round of applause.
Thank you. If you guys have any further questions or anything, like my email is dan@lower.com. Reach me there. I'll shoot you straight. If you need an investment and if your business is good, I'll invest. Thanks for having me, though.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.